We use in this kind of session, we use something, we always start with something called the where to start chart. And this is a chart. I'm not going to screen share and bring up an image of it because it's so simple. I'll just explain it to you. It's a chart that has 5 different levels to it. The first level is the level of our experiences, our awareness, our consciousness, and perception, thoughts, and so on. This is the level at which we can resolve the emotional stresses that cause depression by using the techniques that I'll be showing you, teaching you during this call. So the next level up is called the energetic level. And this is the level where there are energies that are so subtle or just sort of not in the right frequency ranges or whatever, but we can't really feel them. And so we have a technology that we use called the Quantum Energy Optimizer, which I'll give a webinar on some other time. But it's a wonderful technology, originally developed in Germany. I had the good fortune to discover it and have some sessions. I used to have terrible hay fever and allergies, and I had just a handful of sessions. I had tried everything, and nothing had worked. Had a handful of sessions with an earlier version of this technology about, this is back in 1997. And it just like wiped them out, just gone. So I was like impressed. I said, I got to get involved with this. So I negotiated the distribution rights for the leading machine like that at the time and started to import it into the US and came to Germany like 10 times to study seminars and visit the practices of leading people. Got to be kind of the Western hemisphere expert on that technology. So I'll do a special webinar on that sometime so I can show about that. But that's the energetic level. And other energy modalities like X-ray, CAT scan, MRI, things like that, they all exist at that kind of energy level. And then the next level is chemical. And we all know the chemical level. This is diet, nutrition, toxins, pathogens, things at the chemical level. And there are plenty of experts in that field. Our attention in this work is typically on the first 2, and in these demo sessions, especially on the first one. We don't have, you have to do the second one in person. The fourth level is the physical level, and the physical level is like surgery, chiropractic, physical therapy, going for a walk, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, all the kinds of things that are sort of mechanical or physical. And the 5th level is the level of every time we take an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. This is Newton's 3rd law of motion, right? And if we expand on that a little bit, this could include the concept of any action that we take could have some repercussions at some point in the future. It's like the influence of the action goes out, ricochets off of everything in the universe and comes back, sometimes takes a long time, whatever. Commonly called karma. You're probably familiar with that concept. Yeah, and so there are different kinds of, different kinds of modalities for dealing with each of these different levels. The reason this chart is important, and I'm going to tell you how we use it in just a moment, is that when we do the proper kind of testing, which I'll explain in a moment, we can determine what's the level at which the problem really resides at. Where does it really live? Because, millions of times a day, people go to some practitioner and they go down the wrong path. It's like, like somebody has depression and they go to a herbal medicine person, and the herbal medicine person gives them like a St. John's wort. And so they take it and they feel better. But when they stop taking it, maybe they don't continue to feel better, right? Because it's only really suppressed the symptom. It hasn't really solved the problem. So in this work, we'd like to be successful. We don't like to just suppress symptoms. We don't think that's a good idea. We want to get to the real heart of where the problem truly lives and approach it with the right modality so that we can really get it, okay? So that's why we have this chart. And the way we test for it is with something called intuition testing or muscle testing. You may or may not be familiar with it, but There are a great many different forms of this. There are muscle testing is a way of being able to access the body's wisdom, because we experience things through our body, through our senses in our body. And if we don't experience something, we can't really know it. For example, if you had never tasted a strawberry, and I tried to describe the taste of a strawberry to you, and I talked all day about it, you still wouldn't know what it tastes like until you take a bite, right? So experiential things we get through the senses in the body are how we truly know things. So when we're doing this work, what we like to do is, in fact, what we do is we use this form of intuition testing or muscle testing to pull us out of the mind and into the body where our experiential wisdom really resides. And so we let the body's wisdom guide the whole process. So during the process, you're going to see me do something, this muscle testing. If we were in person, some of the tests I would do with your arm, you may have seen it, put out your arm like this, and if I say my name is Tom and I press down on my arm, it stays strong. Okay? If I say my name is Lucy and I push on my arm, it goes down. Okay? And so whether the muscle response is strong or weak, this gives us a kind of basic on-off code of whether we're on track. And basically what we're doing is we're comparing what we're saying with what we've experienced in our body. Now, if there's a match like that, then the arm would be strong. Okay? And if there's a mismatch, like if I say my name is Lucy and the arm goes weak, there's a mismatch. The weak response indicates that there's a discrepancy. There's no match. Now, because we're not in person, it turns out there's a way that I can do this remotely, and people can learn to do this. And that remote method is done with the smaller muscles of the fingers. So the strong response is like this. This muscle stays strong, holds the finger in place. And the weak response is like that, kind of lets go. So if I say my name is Tom, it's strong. My name is Lucy, it's weak, like that. Okay? So with your permission, I can test on your behalf, even halfway around the world. So if that's okay with you, I'll do that, because this is the way I work. Okay. Yeah, great. Terrific. So the thing about the neutrinos the thing about this testing at a distance that's a little bit interesting, I'll just fill you in. I don't want to wait too long because I want to help get on with helping you with the depression. But I want not only you, but anyone who's watching or will be watching the recording to understand what we're doing. So the reason this can work is that so far the smallest subatomic particle that's been discovered by physics is called a neutrino. And the neutrinos are so tiny that they pass through everything, and they move very close to the speed of light. So we don't see them, they're super tiny. I mean, even with an electron microscope, I don't know that you can see them. But the interesting thing about the neutrinos is when they pass through things, they're so tiny they don't bump into anything, they just pass right through it. So like, you have an atom and the electrons are out here and the nucleus is here, and just like goes through like it's not even there. I mean, the neutrinos can pass through a lead wall a light year thick as if it doesn't even exist. So it's quite amazing. And they go really fast. They're like very close to the speed of light. So the neutrinos are created in the nuclear fusion in the stars. And so they spew out in every direction in untold gazillions. And in every single second, millions of them are passing through every square centimeter of our body. Okay. Now, what the physicists have discovered is a very interesting thing, is when the neutrinos pass through something, although they don't bump into anything, they kind of pick up the energy of that thing, a little bit of the energy of that thing. And then the next thing they pass through, they deposit a little bit of that energy in that other thing. So if you just imagine this, in every moment we have millions of neutrinos coming from every direction, passing through everybody on Earth, every rock, tree, plant, everything. And we're getting all of that information in every single moment. So on a certain level, we know everything. Okay? Now, that's not very useful. Because it's a little bit like if you had a radio in your car with no ability to tune to one station, and like all the stations were coming through the amplifier, it would just be total noise, cacophony. You wouldn't be able to, understand anything, right? So like that, we're getting all of that information in every single moment. And so what we need is we need two things. We need a way to filter out everything except the specific information that we want. And we need a way to amplify that information, just like in a car radio, okay? So fortunately, we have both of those things. And the thing that filters out everything except what we want is what's called intention, okay? So if I have the intention to muscle test just for you, that means I'm not going to be testing for anybody else here in China where I am at the moment. It's not going to be for your neighbor. It's going to be just for you. Now, it turns out that our operating system is so sophisticated that in fact works. It does take a little training and practice to be able to do it, but I've been doing this and teaching it for over 20 years, so I'm good at it. But this is what allows me to let your experiential wisdom in your body guide the entire session. And this is great because the mind can lie. The mind can also be confused by all the disruptive emotions, like the things that are causing your depression. I mean, when you're depressed, you don't particularly make good decisions, right? It's like it's very disruptive to your whole decision-making process. And so we want to kind of bypass that and get access to the experiential wisdom in your body and let that guide the whole process. Okay? So this is an unusual way of working. This is not traditional psychotherapy. This is not traditional coaching. We call this inner greatness optimizing, and it's a unique and very special way of working. Okay? Now, in addition to being able to guide the process, we also want to use this intuition testing, muscle testing, we call it. I call it intuition testing because it's a way of amplifying the body's experience of the subtle information it's picking up from the neutrino streams. Okay? So the other thing is, once we find the issue, we determine the issue. First of all, let me just test. I'm going to go ahead and test for you. So from the Where to Start chart, the issues that are causing the depression for Karen are 100% at this consciousness level, first level. Yes. Oh, this is good. This means we're going to be able to get a breakthrough. Okay. So there's something contributing on one of the other 4 levels that's really we need to consider in order to resolve Karen's depression completely. No, this is great. Okay. This is really good. So we know that this approach has an extremely good chance of working, and your body knows it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you that there are 2 primary techniques for resolving the emotional energies that are causing your depression. One of them is called the in technique, the other one is called the out technique. We used to have more acronym kind of names, but I've been teaching my work in China for about almost 4 years now, and I found that the human software engineering acronym names that we came up with were not easy to translate into Chinese. So we switched to much simpler, refined, simpler ways of calling. We call it the in technique and the out technique, and those are easy to translate and easy to understand, and they actually describe exactly what the process is. So the in technique works like this. It turns out there are 2 kinds of emotional energy. One kind is the kind where we get some emotionally painful experience, and in the moment that we have it, it's just too much for us. We can't process it in the moment, okay? And you know what I'm talking about. We've all had experiences like that. It's just too much. So what we do is we kind of archive or hold in our body the residue of the residual, energy of the emotion. And the other kind of emotional energy is called a reactive emotion. And reactive emotion means we have a reaction to a story we're making up in our mind. Like we have an expectation, we create an expectation, we want things to happen in a certain way. And if it doesn't happen the way we want, what happens? We get upset. Okay? We get angry or disappointed or frustrated or sad, something, you know the drill. Everybody has these, okay? And the other subset of these out technique energies, reactive emotion energies, are caused by the projection of a negative, possible negative outcome onto the future, okay? And this is what causes fear, anxiety, worry, things like that. So we think something bad's going to happen, and then we start believing our own story as if it's real, even though it's a story we're making up, okay? And then we feel anxious. Okay? Now, depression is related to the first subcategory in that sometimes when something happens that we really didn't expect, or something doesn't happen that we really wanted to have happen, okay, either of those things can produce a kind of really deep sadness. We're just sad that it didn't happen. And the sadness sometimes can be actually a little bit traumatic. So it actually it may have a root to it in the in-technique side, where there's something kind of traumatic that caused the sadness, right? Does it make sense? Making sense so far?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. You've had the experiences. So what we're going to do is we're going to test to see. We know your intention. Your intention is to be free of the depression and to be happy again, right? We don't even have to create an intention statement for that. It's obvious that that's what we want. So what we're going to do is I'm going to test for how many barriers there are that are specifically and directly causing your depression, okay? And I'm going to test for you for that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There are only 3. Wow, this is great, okay? Now, the reason there are only 3 is because I'm being very specific about my intention. We want to get those energies in you, just the specific energies in you, not all the problems that you have. We can't do that in one session, right? We want to focus completely just on those energies that are causing your depression. And so we have 3. So 1, 2. So 2 of them are the in-technique kind, the traumatic ones that were kind of at the root of the problem. And one of them is that out-technique energy. And this is that we could kind of call it dancing around the outer edges of sadness. That's how I think of depression. It's like you have sadness, which is really that traumatic experience, whatever it was. And then the depression is more like the outer edges of it. It's kind of like not as intense, but something that just kind of lingers around for a long time. How long have you had your depression?
It's kind of up and down, because it's emotions that overwhelm me, but there's been a series of challenges, and I think I'd say I would say I'm not depressed, because I'm kind of enjoying life, but I get overwhelmed. So I feel I'm sort of doing depression now and again, because things get on top of me.
Yeah, so it's intermittent. You have it from time to time.
Yeah, it's not kind of continual. And it's when, at the moment, there's something happening, it's ongoing, and it's just so frustrating. It brings me down. So it's kind of, it's kind of a layering. And then you kind of get to a point where you think, so, but I wouldn't say I'm depressed. I'm a depressed person, and I'm doing, I just do depression now and again. I kind of, when I'm, well, I'm not saying when I allow it, because sometimes it just feels overwhelming.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. It feels like you don't have any control over it. Just kind of happens to you.
Yes. Yeah. But I'm doing your work and things like that. I do as much as I can to help myself. But sometimes it's not that easy.
Sure. So if we were to get a breakthrough on this, it would probably look like, a real breakthrough it would probably look like you not doing depression anymore. Like it just wouldn't happen. That would be cool, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how long would you say this on and off doing depression thing has been going on for you in your life? Has it been your whole life or been just some years?
No, I'd say in the last, it's that since the loss of my parents, I think, which probably about, Dad, 15 years.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
You still
Yeah.
feeling some, you're still feeling any grief over the loss of your dad?
Yes.
Okay. So the grief is probably very closely related to this, especially now that you're telling me that it kind of started then. Okay. So
Mhm.
we'll kind of keep that in our menu here of things that we'll check for. And we'll see. This is part of the cause of the depression. Yeah, that's part of the cause of your depression is you're still grieving after 15 years. Wow. I had a terrific session with lady in the U.S. on grief just the other day, and if you haven't seen the recording of that session, the recording is up on the website. I'll get you the link. You can see that one, and it's really superb. We got rid of her. We got rid of her grief, her anger, and her fear, anxiety in one session.
Wow.
All cleared up. Yeah, incredible. And she'd been grieving since her husband died last August. Yeah. Okay. So our goal then is to see if we can really get to the true root causes of this periodic doing of depression that you're talking about and be able to resolve the energy of the emotions that are causing that so thoroughly, so completely, that there's nothing left of them. This is gone. Okay.
Okay.
Because then you'll be returning to a kind of natural state of who you really are, like free of the burden of carrying that around. Now, why does it happen that we get like this? It's valuable to know this because I think you read in my posts on Facebook that in 1993 I got shot in the chest by a crazy guy, and it's a miracle it didn't kill me because it was a 44 caliber gun. I mean, the bullet's like this big, and it hit me right in the chest, right by the right nipple, and just missed major nerves and arteries as it went. I was leaned over and it hit the lower edge of a rib and went down, just missing major nerves and arteries, and lodged behind the fifth lumbar. And anyway, I had some physical healing to do, but the biggest part of the healing was from the post-traumatic stress that I had. I had all the PTSD symptoms, nightmares, flashbacks, everything. And I didn't believe that the PTSD was incurable, which is kind of what the psychological and medical community believes. But I thought they must be missing something. And so I went on kind of a quest to figure out what it was that was missing. And fortunately, I found it. And it's so simple that I can see why people don't see it. They don't get it. It's incredibly simple. And it's just basically this. When we're little, we all get emotionally overwhelmed many, many times. Nobody likes it. Never met anybody who likes it. Everybody hates it, in fact. And everybody, to a person, everybody rapidly learns to try to suppress their emotionally painful experiences the best they can. Now, if they can't suppress it, they get overwhelmed by it and they cry. We're all familiar with that, okay? But if they can suppress it, and typically we learn to do this very, very early, like even before we learn to talk, okay? And so people develop a habit of attempting to suppress their feelings from so early on, it becomes kind of automatic and we just do it without even realizing it. Okay? And so this is a setup for becoming actually really lousy at handling emotions. And if you think about it, everybody you know, they're not good at handling their emotions. Now, they'll try and hide that, of course, and they'll try and be, but even if somebody gets really good at suppressing their emotions, the energy of the emotion is still in them. And if they don't experience it as an emotion, eventually, if it accumulates more and more, then they'll start to get things like high blood pressure or, all kinds of physical, chronic pain, all kinds of physical manifestations of the held, tight, painful energy held in the body. So it was extremely fortunate that I discovered how to deal with that. And what I discovered was that I had to learn how to do the exact opposite of what we're deeply conditioned to do. We're conditioned to suppress it, which means to kind of push it away, get away from it, try to not feel it, sweep it under the rug, that kind of thing. But when you sweep it under the rug, it's still under the rug. So what I realized is I had to do the opposite. I had to actually get closer to the feeling, the sensation of the feeling, and allow myself to focus right into the center of the strongest part of it. Now, when I first tried that, the little 3-year-old in me was saying, Tom, you're crazy. Don't do this. So no, I'm going to try it. I got to try it because I got to get over this PTSD. So I tried it. And the first thing I noticed was it didn't kill me to feel the energy of this terror that I still had in my chest. This was like maybe 3 years after the shooting. So I felt it and I focused on the strongest part of it. And what gradually happened is it started to diminish and become less. And as it did, I got my courage up even more, and I got even closer to what was left of it. That made it seem stronger, not because it was stronger, just because I was closer. And again, focused on the central strongest part, and again, it gradually softened a little more. So I kept doing that again and again and again. And pretty soon, I had felt it so thoroughly that there was nothing left to feel. And I thought, maybe I'm onto something. So I said, well, let me sleep on it. I'll see tomorrow if it's really gone. I thought about the shooting incident, and I didn't feel the terror anymore. So went to bed, slept that night, woke up in the morning. First thing I noticed in the morning was I didn't have any nightmares last night. First time in 3 years, no nightmares. Incredible. So I thought about the whole incident again. No terror, nothing. So I said, okay, this is really something great I've discovered. And I used it on all the different traumas that I had. I had a trauma from the way I was taken to the local hospital in the car on this really bumpy road. And every bump was like incredibly painful. It was holding my chest. The helicopter that was coming to the small town where I was living in Iowa was delayed, had a fuel leak, and had to send a different one. So I was waiting, anyway, there are all these different kind of traumatic things about it. And I used the technique on all of them, and I completely cured myself of PTSD. Now, this is like unheard of. People just don't do that. Okay? So I realized this is a major discovery. And as I started to share it with friends and family, I started to realize that what I discovered could be used for all kinds of emotions, not just, you didn't have to be severely traumatized in order to benefit from it. So anyway, I'm telling you all this to give you just a sense that there's a very interesting origin to this, and also to give you the understanding that the reason why you have the depression is that you haven't been able to allow yourself to feel and complete the incomplete experience of these two traumas that I tested for. And also, you don't know how to get out of this kind of energy cloud of the sadness of the
residue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to teach you how to do. I'm going to teach you how to get out of this stuff. Okay. And this is why we have an extremely good chance of resolving this entire issue today. Okay, so we're going to go for it. Okay, so when we do the techniques, what's going to happen is I'm going to have you close your eyes because it's easier to do them without the distraction of outer visual stimuli. And so let's see, there's something else that I need to do to prepare Karen for this. Yes, okay. This is to test for which things we do first. Yes. It's important that we start with the in-technique energies. Yes, okay. And need to explain the locate technique. Okay, so when we've suppressed an emotion, and we really have it shoved down in there and we can't feel it, when I go to ask you to access it, you you may not be able to access it by just thinking about it, okay? And so we have a special technique, it's called the locate technique, which is for locating the energy. And the way it works is, I'm going to guide you to notice your thoughts, and then look off to the side of your thoughts and notice the background of emptiness or silence in which the thoughts occur. Okay? An analogy is very helpful here. The thoughts occur in a background of silence. It's very similar to how clouds appear on a partly cloudy day. You can see the clouds, and you can see the sky, and the way you see the sky is very simple. You just look off to the side of the clouds, and there it is. It's there all the time. Okay? Like that, our thoughts are occurring in this background of silence, and the background of silence is our awareness. It's the awareness we're using to experience everything. Okay? Now, we don't normally pay any attention to our awareness because there's nothing there. So in a way, it's kind of uninteresting. But today, we're going to be very, very interested in it, and I'm going to show you how to experience it. And even though there's nothing there, you can still experience that nothingness. Okay? It's quite possible. Now, we start the locate technique by doing what we call the quietness technique, which is to notice this quietness in the background. And once you have that, once you have a kind of series of tastes of that quietness, you don't stay in it for a long time because you experience the quietness, then another thought comes along and kind of interrupts it. You look off to the side of that thought, and you get access to the quietness again, okay? And you keep doing that, and pretty soon you get kind of a sense, a kind of flavor of the quietness. Now, the reason this is valuable is that once you have a kind of little bit of grounding in the quietness, it's possible to allow yourself to feel whatever the emotional energy is because there's nothing in the way of feeling it. Now, you may have to actually decide that you're going to allow yourself to feel it if the body shows it to you, okay? Because you got a lifetime of avoidance, a lifetime of deciding not to feel it. So you may have to consciously decide, and I'll test for that. If we have to decide, that's no problem. I'll just tell you, you can decide. Then you go into the quietness, and then you tell the body, this is the locate technique, you tell the body, okay, body, I'm ready to feel this energy, whatever it is. Show me the in-technique energy that's at the basis of my depression. And amazingly enough, the body will lift up the rug and show you right where it is. Okay? So once you feel it, then we're going to immediately shift to the in technique. And the way the in technique works is you notice the energy field. You don't try and push it away. You don't try and make it go away. You don't try and do anything to it. What you do is you just allow yourself to notice the central, strongest part of the energy. Typically, it's right in the middle. Okay? So you let yourself notice it, and the first thing you'll discover when you do that is it doesn't kill you to notice it. Okay? It doesn't kill you. It's possible. Is it intense? Yeah, it's intense, but it's just a sensation. It's just a sensation in the body. That's all it is. And so it's quite possible to do. In fact, it's not even that difficult. Okay? So as you notice the central, strongest part of the energy, what happens is it starts to soften a little bit. Starts to become a little less intense. And when that happens, you're going to let me know that that's happening, okay? Because then I'm going to give you the next instruction, which will be to allow yourself now to get a little closer to it. Let your awareness come a little closer to what's left of the energy, just like I was explaining what I did when I cured my PTSD. Now, when you do that, it's going to make it seem a little stronger again, not because it is stronger, it's actually weaker, but just because you're getting closer to it. Okay? It's a little bit like being on Google Maps and clicking in for a closer view, sort of magnification process. Okay, so again, you just focus on the central strongest part. It gradually softens. Then you do it again. You click in closer again, and you just keep doing that. You focus on the central strongest part. It gets softer. You get closer. It seems stronger again. Focus on the central strongest part. After a little while, it gets softer again. And so it's a sequence of doing that. You'll get the hang of it once you try it. Okay, it's not, the beautiful thing about these techniques is they're not difficult. They're actually incredibly simple, and it's usually the simplest things that work the best anyway. So that's the in technique, and I'll explain the out technique to you when we get to that. We don't have to explain that now. Okay, all right. So if you're ready to rock and roll here, we can give it a try. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So go ahead and close your eyes and sit comfortably. And we need to use the locate technique to access the energy. Yeah. So we can actually get it by thinking about the father's passing away. Yeah, we may be able to get this actually by just thinking about your dad and remembering losing him. Now, if it really makes you tremendously sad and you feel like crying, I'll probably be able to see that in your facial expression, and I can guide you in exactly what to do so we don't, it's not that crying is bad, but that's not effective, so we don't want to waste our time with that. So can you feel some energy, some tightness somewhere in your body related to your still feeling some grief about your dad?
Yeah. Yeah, I can feel it.
Okay, where is it?
It's in my chest.
Yeah, very common to store this in your chest. Now, notice that the reason you can feel it, there's a sensation there. The sensation is being caused by a field of energy. And that field of energy can feel kind of like a tight knot or ball of energy held inside of you there. But it is a field of energy, and there's a place within the field where the energy is stronger than elsewhere, typically right in the center. And if you allow yourself to, you can feel where that central, strongest part is. Yeah? Yeah. So this central, strongest part is the place where we want to just gently notice the sensation that's there. We don't try and push it away. We don't try and make it go away. We don't try and do anything to it. We just simply allow ourselves to notice it. The other thing you can do is to adjust how close to or far away from it you are. The optimal distance is where you can really feel it, but it's not overwhelming. Now, as you feel it, the intensity level may seem to stay more or less the same for a while, but after a while, it will gradually soften a bit. And when it does, let me know.
Yeah, the edges are getting kind of softer.
Ah, very good, very good. So if it feels okay, you can allow yourself to get a little bit closer to what's left of the energy and continue to keep your focus of attention right into the center of the strongest part of whatever remains of it. And after a time, it'll soften a little more.
Yeah, it's softening.
Okay, good. And the key to not having it overwhelm you is to stay focused on the central, strongest part of it. Strangely enough, what this does is it kind of gives you a little bit of a distance from the energy, and then you don't have a tendency to get kind of sucked into it and overwhelmed by it. So that's very good. You're doing fine. So get a little closer, adjust the distance so it's just right, where you can really feel it, but it's not overwhelming. And again, just stay focused on the central strongest area. And each time it softens, Karen, get closer immediately. That might have a tendency to kind of speed up the process, which is fine. We're not trying to make it go away, but we are wanting to complete the incomplete experience that's being held there as efficiently as possible.
It's really dissipating now.
Very good. So just before the energy's gone, it will do exactly that. The experience will start to change. The energy will sort of dissipate. It's almost like the fog burning off in the morning sun. It just kind of starts dissolving and moving away. And now you'll reach a point where all the energy is kind of dissipated and moved away and gone. And it'll just be quiet, like that quietness you were experiencing before. And when all the energy feels like it's really gone, then you can open your eyes. All right, very good. So I'm going to test for you now. This first in-technique energy is now thoroughly complete. Yes. There's some more of it hiding someplace inside. We need to go dig it up and find it. No, good. Very good. Good job. One down, one to go. This is great. Yeah, you're smiling too. That's a good sign. Okay, so there's more energy related to the grief of the parents. No, the grief is handled. There's some other trauma that you have inside. Now, the good thing is we don't even need to know what it is. We don't need to know what it is, because every situation in life always has two things. There's the circumstances, and then there's our reaction. And for most people, the circumstances and the reaction are so intertwined, so interlaced that hard to get them apart. But it's possible to get them apart because emotions have both content and energy. Okay, the content is what the emotion is about, the circumstances, right? And the energy is what keeps the reaction alive. Okay, gives life to the emotion. So most approaches to dealing with emotions attempt to do it through the content. This is like cognitive therapy and coaching and all this kind of stuff. Not particularly effective. I mean, we all know people have gone to therapy for years and still have their problems, right? So it's expensive and not effective. So we focus in Inner Greatness Optimizing, we focus on the energy, because when we resolve the energy, as you just did, when it's gone, it's really gone. Because we didn't suppress it, we completed an incomplete experience. It's the experience of the energy that you just couldn't handle when it happened. It was just too much. But now we gradually allowed ourselves to experience it and completed it. That one's gone. It's not going to come back. Okay. And in fact, we can even test it. Think about your dad and see if you still feel any pain of loss.
No, just love. Just love.
Yeah, exactly. You know, my youngest daughter died about 5 years ago. And I heard the news. I was in Switzerland, actually, at the time, not so far from where you are. And I heard the news, and I was, of course, shocked. And, it was very painful. But I had helped quite a number of people with grieving previously. And so I knew exactly what to do. So I used the technique. It took me about an hour because it was very fresh, very intense. And when it was gone, it was just like you. I thought about my daughter. I didn't feel any pain anymore. All I could feel was my love for her. And it's been that way ever since. There's been no pain after. It's just incredible. So like instead of months or years, it was over in an hour. It was incredible. So this is major breakthrough stuff. This is not trivial. This is a major discovery for the whole field of emotional competence. Okay? All right, very good. So now we want to deal with this second trauma energy. And we need to identify the event that caused the trauma. No. Okay. Appropriate for us to use the locate technique and just go for finding the energy. Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm going to teach you the locate technique, and we'll find the second energy. Then we're going to do exactly what we just did for the first one. Okay. Just We don't need to, the beautiful thing is we don't need to know what caused it, because when it's gone, who cares? Okay? All right, so here we go. So close your eyes again and sit comfortably. And I'll guide you through the steps of the locate technique, which starts with the quietness technique as the front end of it. So the thing is, when you close your eyes, of course, you can still hear the sound of my voice, maybe other sounds in your environment. You can feel your body sitting on the couch or wherever you're sitting. You might be able to feel your hands folded in your lap or wherever they are, and feel some physical sensations. And the other predominant thing that occurs is you'll have thoughts going through your mind. Plenty of them. And as I was explaining in the orientation part at the beginning, these thoughts are occurring in a background of silence. And it's very easy to access that silence by just looking off to the side of the thoughts and noticing that there's some quietness there, some kind of emptiness. This is very much like looking up at the sky on a partly cloudy day. You can see the clouds, you can see the sky, and it's so easy to see the sky, you just look off to the side of the clouds and there it is. So very much like that, if when a thought comes, you just look off to the side of the thought and you notice the quiet, silent background, that's the way to access that quietness. And so whenever you feel comfortable to start doing that, when you're noticing your thoughts, just sort of observe them and don't get absorbed in them. Don't be concerned about the meaning or content of the thoughts. Just allow yourself to notice them like from a slight distance. And that makes it easier to be able to look off to the side and notice the quietness. Now, you won't stay in the quietness for a long time because another thought will come along and kind of interrupt the quietness. That's okay. We're not trying to get rid of thoughts. So when the second thought comes, you just look off to the side of that thought and notice the quietness in the background yet again. And each time a new thought comes, you look off to the side, notice the background of quietness again. And gradually, you start to get a sense of that quietness. You're more aware of it, more conscious of it. You don't even have to finish the thoughts because we're not concerned about them. Just noticing that you're beginning to have a thought, you can kind of interrupt it and look off to the side without even finishing it. And so your tastes of the quietness can become a little bit more extended. Are you getting a feeling for what I mean about the background of quietness?
I am, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah, just peaceful, quiet state. Okay, this is sufficient. We can now do the rest of the locate technique. Yes, we can. Okay, so now we're just going to tell your body, and you make a decision that when the body shows you this energy, you're going to allow yourself to feel it. So you just tell your body, show me this other in technique energy that's at the root of this doing depression thing that I've been having for so long. And pretty much immediately, the body will show you some tight, constricted place inside, which is where you're holding this second energy. Yeah, you can feel it now. So I don't need to know where it is. As long as you know where it is, that's fine. Okay. So just allow yourself to notice that there's a field of energy there, just like we did the first time. And in the field, there's a place where the energy is stronger than elsewhere, which is typically right in the center. And adjust the distance so you're as close to that as you can be without being overwhelmed by it. And keep your attention, just like before, focused right into the center of the strongest part. Now, as it starts to soften, do just like we did before, get closer to it. And each time it softens, again, immediately just get closer to it. This will keep the level of a apparent feeling of intensity fairly high, but you're noticing it's not so difficult, not difficult to do. It's just a sensation. Just testing for you. Karen's doing it exactly right. Yes. Needs more guidance from me at the moment. No, no. You're doing perfectly. Keep it up. Good work. So continuing to soften.
It's nearly gone.
Nearly gone. Great, great. You're doing wonderfully. So just keep at it until you felt it so thoroughly, so completely that there's nothing left to feel.
It's gone.
Okay, terrific. I'll just double check for you. This energy is now thoroughly completed. Very good. Excellent. Great. Okay, you can open your eyes. Good job.
Wow.
Amazing, huh?
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, notice that you're learning how to do something that's the exact opposite of what you've been doing all your life. You've been going the other way. You've been trying to get away from these feelings. The 3-year-old in us doesn't like the idea of getting overwhelmed, you know. But when we grow up, we have a huge capacity to feel things, but we don't use it because of the conditioning. It's just like completely underutilized. Yeah. So this is not therapy we're doing. This is training. This is training in how to utilize your previously underutilized natural capacity to feel and heal these things. You just haven't known what to do. Okay, so good. You're learning. You're doing really good. Okay, so now we have this one remaining out technique energy, and this energy is the energy of sort of dancing around the outer edges of this sadness, we could say. And it's a completely different type of energy. And you know what it feels like because you've experienced it for a long time, but you've experienced it so long that you're kind of used to it in a sense, in a way, you know, it's like, but I'm going to point it out to you what it is, and then you'll be able to get it. Okay. If we need to, we can use the locate technique for this too. Okay. So this energy is quite different. It's not as visceral. It's not as concentrated. It kind of radiates out from the body and it fills up the space around you. And it creates a kind of cloud or aura of energy. And the problem is you're inside the cloud. And when you look out, you're sort of seeing the world through the coloration, if you will, of this sadness quality. Okay? This is just when you're doing your depression thing. Okay. Not all the time, but when you're in that, it's like you are you're basically just kind of in a bad habit of continuing to wish that things had not happened the way they did, or continuing to wish that things, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah. And so this bad habit of keeping this is extremely difficult to get out of when you're inside the cloud of energy, because it colors everything and it makes it seem very real. Right? We kind of get enrolled in or kind of identified with or attached to our story, and we keep perpetuating the story even though it's not doing us any good. Okay? So the way out of this is very simple also, but it does again start with the first step is having to allow yourself to be able to feel that cloud of energy. Now, it sounded like you had a kind of recognition about maybe even where this came from, and we don't even need to know about where it came from. I don't need to know. But if you have a sense of it and you think about it, this like things didn't happen the way you wanted, okay? You may be able to just sense the energy field of this cloud or aura of energy. It just kind of surrounds and engulfs you. Get a sense of what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. She's got the feeling of the energy exactly right. Okay, yeah, this is it. This is an out technique energy. Okay, we call it a reactive emotion, and it's an energy of sort of sadness that things didn't go the way you wanted. Okay, but it's based on the story that, hey, it should have gone the way I wanted. Could even be a little bit of anger mixed in with it. Yeah. Sometimes these things are kind of a conglomerate of several different feelings, almost like you couldn't even really name it, but you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's close your eyes again and allow yourself to notice the cloud of energy. Can still feel it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the instruction is very simple, Karen. It's just to go see how big the field is. And what I mean by that is you let your awareness move out into the space around you further and further. What we're looking for is the place where the energy fades off into the surrounding quietness. Now, sometimes these can be very big, sometimes they're not so big, doesn't matter. You just keep going until, the outer edge is not like a hard edge, like a bubble or something. Typically, sometimes, but very, very rare. It's more typically just kind of like fading off into the surrounding quietness. And we're interested in accessing that quietness that's outside the cloud of energy. So you just keep going until you get thoroughly outside of it, even beyond the last little wispy aspects of it.
Gosh, it's quite big.
It's big, huh? Yeah, sometimes they're quite big. Sometimes they're really huge, actually.
I'm there, I think. I'm on the edge.
Okay. So you think you got access to the quietness now? Okay, good. So now the next step is to go a little bit further into the quietness. And you do that by just noticing the area of the quietness that's a little further away from the energy cloud. And the reason to do this is to get the distinction between the energy and the quietness even more clear. It's easy to do. Got that?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And now we're going to go really far away from the energy field, way, way out into the quietness. And allow yourself to notice that you could just keep going. Like the quietness is endless. It's just vast and limitless. You get a sense of that? Kind of a nice place to hang out, actually. Very good. Just enjoy that for a moment. This is your awareness. This is the essential nature of what you truly are. It's the essence of you. It's the thing that allows you to have every experience that you have. Now, if you look back now at the energy cloud that you were inside of just moments ago, what's happening to it?
It's getting smaller.
Yeah, it's shrinking, kind of fading away. Wonderful. This is exactly what we want. You're doing it perfectly. Now that you're outside the cloud of energy, now it's possible to see that there's been a story kind of running in the background that's generating this sad feeling. And it's some kind of story like, oh, I expected it to be different. Things didn't happen the way I wanted. It should have happened the way I wanted. Something like that. You get that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Now, as the energy is fading away, it's going to fade away completely, but we want to ensure that not only it fades away completely, but that it doesn't come back. Okay? And the only reason it would come back is if you continued to, or if you brought back this story, because the energy of the reaction is a reaction to the presence of the story. If there's no story, there's no energy. So what we want to do now is we want to challenge the habit of allowing this story to be in your awareness. And so we're just going to ask a few questions to see if there's any real value to keeping it. Because it turns out nobody's making you have this story in your awareness other than you. And you're just doing it kind of basically as a bad habit. So first question is it changing the circumstances of the past and allowing it to be different to hang on to the story? Not changing what happened, is it?
No.
No. So it's not helping in that regard. Is there any benefit to keeping the story in your mind? Is it making your life better in any way, shape, or form to continue to allow this story to be in your awareness?
No, not at all.
Not in the slightest, right? So would you say this is, if you were an investment advisor, would you advise anybody to invest their energy in something like this?
No.
Absolutely not. You can start to see it would be kind of ridiculous to allow this story to continue to be in your awareness. Now, the cool thing is that when you're outside the energy cloud as you are now, you have a sense of kind of empowerment, a sense of choice about whether you keep running this story or not. Can you feel that? It's like you're no longer like the victim of just being in the bad habit of it. You have the ability to choose whether you let that story be in your awareness or not. And all you have to do, it's very simple, all you have to do is just decide you're not going to give any energy to this story ever again. And the moment you decide that, anything left of the energy and the story itself collapse back into the nothingness out of which you created them in the first place. And then they're gone. Nice, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good. Okay, when it feels like all the energy's gone, then you can open your eyes.
It's gone. Definitely gone.
Definitely gone. Great job, Karen. You did it perfectly. This is really good. A student. Okay, so now I want you to see if you can conjure up any feeling of depression. See if it's possible to make yourself feel depressed. Not possible.
Everything just feels very clear, like clarity. I don't know. It's like
exactly.
Clean.
This is a clarity you haven't had for 15 years or maybe even ever. And you probably feel a lot lighter.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Great job, Karen. Really great job. Oh, it's my pleasure. This is basically just teaching, that's what I do. And I love sharing this with people and seeing the breakthroughs. So, such a nice smile you have on your face now. At the beginning, really, really good. Okay, very good. So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to follow up with you in maybe a week or two and just kind of see how you're doing. Yeah, I want to see how you're doing. Make sure that, you're really okay. Okay. Yeah. So we'll do that. We can email or use Facebook or whatever, and set a time for that.
Wonderful.
And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to be giving, actually I have an introductory webinar, and I'm going to send you the link to it, okay? It explains about something which is called the freedom practice. And the freedom practice is a way of using these techniques and also learning the muscle testing. I teach you how to do the muscle testing, and you already know the 4 basic techniques now. But the way the freedom practice works, I'm just going to give you a very brief intro, and then I'll send you a link so you can watch it's about a 20-minute webinar or so about it, so you can know about it, because this is really precious, and I'll explain why. Okay. We have 4 different kinds of thoughts that influence our decision making. 2 of them are useful, and 2 of them are not useful. Okay. The useful ones are our practical thoughts, like making a shopping list, getting directions where to go for, so we have lots and lots of those. They're useful. We need them. There are no emotional charge to them. They're all okay. Okay. Second useful kind are our creative, intuitive thoughts. Okay. These are the ones where you get some, great idea, whether it's to cook something or to write a book or, whatever it happens to be. These are intuition, like remembering where you left something, whatever it happens to be. These intuitive thoughts are also very useful. And they also don't have any emotional charge to them. And they're not something we create. People use the term, I set an intention. No, you're actually just perceiving something that's coming. It's like premonition. And so these are also very useful. Now, we also have 2 not useful kinds of thoughts. One kind are the emotionally painful based thoughts, which are based on in-technique energies, what you just experienced resolving. Okay? And the other ones are what are called ego-based thoughts. And these are the ones that come from the out-technique energies primarily. They can actually be either one, but it's mostly like that. Okay? Because the ego-based thoughts are the ones where we think we know. Okay? In the links I'm going to send you, there's a little 2-minute video of experts like in psychology and personal development talking about the ego. And what they say about the ego is that the ego is so sneaky that it hides in the last place you would ever look for it, which is it hides within itself, hides within our mind. Okay? And so it makes you think that its thoughts are your thoughts. But the thoughts that we have that are coming from the ego are all coming from these disruptive emotions that we're still holding inside our body. Okay? The energy of those emotions cause those thoughts, give fuel to those thoughts, keep them alive. Okay? So the way the freedom practice works is you learn the muscle testing, and you learn how to test. When you have a thought, you learn how to test for which of the 4 kinds of thoughts it is. And if it's ego-based or emotionally pain-based, you immediately use locate technique to find the energy, and then you resolve it with the in or out technique, and then it's gone.
Wow.
Now, the beauty of the program, the development of this program is very recent. Actually, it's just in the past half year. In February or March, I started a program to train presenters of my work here in China. And about 35 of my top students are in this class. And I wanted to make sure that they were so clean emotionally that they were living examples of this work. And I don't know if you remember that film of When Harry Met Sally with Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal, and they're in a restaurant and they're talking about women faking orgasms. You remember that? It's a very famous scene. And Meg does this great, faking of an orgasm thing. And then some woman who's ordering her food at another table, she says, I'll have what she's having. I don't know if you remember that. It's one of the great movie scenes of all times. Anyway, in a different way, when these people are presenting my work, I want them to be so emotionally clean that people may not be able to articulate what it is, but there'll be something about them that say, whatever that person has, I want that. Mm-hmm. I want what she's having. A little different than the movie, but anyway, it makes the point, right? It makes the point. So I decided to develop this freedom practice. I was very fortunate to, it was an intuitive thought to develop the freedom practice. And what I'm seeing now is that people are making progress in this program. It's been going on for just about 3 months now. Yeah, about 3 months, March, April, May. And it's incredible. I'm seeing progress in these people's experiences that I didn't used to see for, a year or two previously with just the ordinary way that we've been using these techniques in the past. So I'm very excited about this. And everybody who's getting involved with my work now, I want them to know this. I want them to learn this. This is going to become like the flagship program for people to learn, because this is the way to rapidly clean out your inner emotional landscape in this better way that you're feeling. Amplify that by 100 times. Okay?
Wow.
That's what we're talking about. Okay. So anyway, I want you to know about that, because there's an extraordinary new development in the evolution of my work, and I want everybody that I'm involved with to know about this, because I'm gonna have an online version of the training for learning the muscle testing, and so people will be able to participate and learn this from all over the world, which is what I want. I have a very big mission. My mission is to remove the pain of the world, and it's a big job. So I'm going to need a lot of help. Anyway, so I just thought I'd explain that to you, and also get it on the video so that people could see it too. So yeah. Delightful to meet you, Karen. I think we're off to a great start here. Let's follow up in maybe a week or two. I'll communicate with you. We'll set a time, and we'll only need 5-10 minutes or something just to kind of check in, see how you're doing. But I want to do that. Maybe again in maybe like 3 months or something, we'll check, because I want to be able to show people that this stuff not only really works, but that it doesn't come back, that it lasts, the results last. That's why we want to substantiate that. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Very good.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything. I've learned so much. Thank you.
Yeah. You're so welcome, Karen. Delightful to meet you. Delighted to work with you, and we'll look forward to being in touch in a week or two.
You too. Thank you, Tom. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.